Hello, everyone. This is Kylene with Parents for Public Schools of Pitt County, and I am here today with some very valuable members of our community who are ready to answer a lot of the questions that you've been asking. Before I have them go around and introduce themselves, I think many of you heard me say this last week with Dr. Lassiter, but I want to remind parents that this is our first time going through COVID together. And for our school personnel, this is their first time going through COVID together. So we're all really trying to be patient with one another. They have received all questions that were submitted to Parents for Public Schools. There may be a few questions that they're still working out the answers to, but please be assured that they are aware of your questions and aware of your concerns, and that their top priority is you and your children this school year. So lots of thank yous and grace and patience for our amazing school staff. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So if everyone will go around and introduce themselves and say what your role is here with us today, and we'll start with Ms. Gaynor.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Virginia Gaynor. I serve as the Exceptional Children's Director for Pitt County Schools, and very happy to be with you this afternoon.
All right, thank you. And then we'll move up to Ms. Hadnot.
Sure, I'm Joy Hadnot. I'm the Coordinator of Specialized Programs, the lead occupational therapist, and also unique mealtime needs coordinator. So any questions about specialized diets or needs, I can also try to field those questions.
Thank you for being with us.
Sure.
Ms. Staffelbach.
Hi, I'm Sheila Staffelbach. I'm the coordinator for support and related services. I'm also the lead SLP, and then have teletherapy is another part of what I do.
Thank you for all that you do, and thanks for being here. All right, Ms. Peel.
Hi, I'm Mary Peel. I am the EP Instructional Coordinator.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. And last but not least, Mrs. White.
Hi, my name is Nicole White. I assist with 504s in the county under direction of Karen Harrington, our Student Services Director.
Excellent. And I know that you may see in the recording down at the bottom Jennifer Johnson's name. I just want to put a shout out there to the PIO for Pitt County Schools for setting this up and helping us get the logistics of recording worked out. So she's been a very crucial piece in this, even though she's not answering questions. So we're going to jump right in. And if you feel like this question pertains to something that you are a part of, feel free to jump in and answer. So one question has been, will services for students with disabilities continue to happen only face-to-face, or will those also be available virtually? And specifically things like OT, PT, speech, things like that. Is that just going to happen in person, or will it be available virtually?
Well, it'll be available both ways. With the AB schedule, most of our children, in fact, would be receiving services that way, the great majority, just like all other students, because one of the things we continually remind individuals of is that students with disabilities are general ed students first. So whatever services general ed students that do not have disabilities have are also afforded to students with disabilities. Now, some of the services I'm assuming that parents have a question about are our related services staff, OT, PT, SLP, speech language services, and yes, those services, regardless of the mode of instruction, of learning option, will be provided.
Okay, so if you've chosen to have your child at home on more of that C schedule and they're only going to be at home, there are ways for them to receive these services. And if you've chosen that AB schedule where they're at school part of the time and at home part of the time, you will also still receive these services. So your child will continue to receive the services that they've received in the past. One question we've gotten quite a bit is, are there plans in place to ensure IEP fidelity across virtual and face-to-face? So a similar question to the one before, but a bit more detail.
Yeah, sort of related to that first question, and absolutely yes. And I'm going to sort of yield that and throw that question to one of my staff, Mary Peel, who oversees the instructional supports and the methodology that we use to provide student services that have an IEP.
Thank you,
So
Ms. Peel.
so we have systems and procedures that have been in place for a couple of years now to ensure that students receive those services on their IEP. We will continue those even during this uncertain time. We have worked this summer, though, to make sure that we buy extra resources, so we will be able to continue to provide that specially designed instruction. We've added to our resources that will work both face-to-face and remotely. So it is a district expectation that students will get their specially designed instruction, and that will continue. So we will make sure that those services are being provided.
Hey, the theme I'm hearing is that services will continue. All right. So a top question, and this may be a question that is bigger than all of you and may really be more of a state decision. But a lot of parents feel that students who identify as EC or maybe have autism, that they learn better with consistency. And so there are some parents who are concerned about students being at school one week and at home the next week. And they're wondering, is there any option for students who identify in these categories to come to school every day instead of the AB option?
Okay, so this is one of the questions that I've gotten calls on. Each child is a unique and individual. So each student that has any global delays, like in communication, like in physical development, if they have any mental health challenges, if they are at risk, make others at risk because of not being able to wear a mask or something like that, could be considered, all right, for face-to-face services. But you can't make a global decision and say that there are 14 categories that all special education students can come face-to-face, because if that was so, we would have been able to choose plan A and bring everyone back.
Sure.
On top of that, because lots of it, I know Kylie and I tend to sometimes get a little wordy there, but I think it's really important that parents and those who are listening know that there are lots of layers that we have to filter through when we're talking about providing services to our students that have IEPs. So to answer that question, they can be considered, but there's some layers that we have to go through to look at their disability, whether they have global delays, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so it sounds like the main message there for parents is that there are some students who could have considerations, and it will depend on each family's circumstance and each student's circumstance. And that would really be more of an individual basis rather than a global, everyone does this or everyone does that. So it sounds like it may be helpful if parents wanted to discuss that. Ms. Gaynor, would they contact you or someone specifically at their school?
Well, they could do both. They absolutely could do both. I know that parents, I get emails and calls from principals as well as parents.
Okay.
Regarding that issue.
And I'll just put it out there, Ms. Gaynor is always so wonderful to answer emails, and I've had parents email me, and then I just connect them to Ms. Gaynor. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to Parents for Public Schools. You can private message us. We're happy to connect you to Ms. Gaynor. Her information is also on the Pitt County Schools website, so please feel free to reach out to her or to your specific school. So another question that has come up a lot, and it will be no surprise to any of you, is around masks. And so a lot of parents are wondering, if a student identifies as EC and struggles to wear a mask, are there any accommodations being made around masks for students?
I can speak on that.
You, Ms.
So
White.
according to the North Carolina Public Health Toolkit that was released, there is a provision that students with developmental, behavioral, and medical limitations will not need to wear a face covering. And I think kind of similar to what Ms. Gaynor had said earlier, it's going to be base by base decision and individual student decisions.
Okay. And we've also had parents who have teachers in mind. And so there are some questions around what are we doing to, or what are the schools doing to keep teachers safe when maybe their students are unable to wear a mask? So can anyone speak to the provisions being made for teachers if the student is unable to wear a mask?
I think it goes the same. Teachers can wear they will be wearing masks, and then also if they would like to wear a face shield as well. So that would just be an extra kind of layer of protection if their students are not wearing face coverings.
So it sounds like this is not something that hasn't been thought about. It's definitely been given a lot of thought. That there is an understanding that some students will be unable to wear masks, and those teachers will be aware of that, and they'll be able to make plans to protect themselves even further if that's the case. Let's see. Next question. So if there is a student who is unable to use a computer, and I think this may go back to some of the individual case by case, but if there's a student unable to use a computer due to their circumstances, how will remote learning work for them? Should their parents be expected to be more involved, or is that a case that the parents really should just call and make specific plans with the school?
I can speak to that a little bit. Sometimes I think that need can be met through, the right match for assistive technology. So we know that some students will receive an iPad, perhaps, instead of a Chromebook or some other type of keyboard type device. So it may be that a change in the access using the right technology match can help get them there. However, we also understand that it may be more difficult than that. So back in the spring when we were doing supplemental instruction, there was a large number of students where, the parent became their assistant so that they could participate in the instruction that was being provided. I was able to participate in several Zoom meetings with EC teachers where they were providing superb instruction. Those materials, adapted materials, were provided to the student ahead of time so that they could participate. So there are many ways to skin the cat, per se. That was a saying that my family used to say. There's many ways to skin the cat, and we're looking to problem solve any avenue that helps the student participate in instruction.
So Ms. Hadnot, that addresses another question that came up, which was, will equipment be provided in people's homes if they're doing the remote plan, whether it's whether it's through the AB schedule or the fully remote schedule? But are there pieces of equipment that can be provided for students in their homes? And it sounds like you're saying that in some circumstances that might be the case.
Right, and especially if those items are listed on the student's IEP, where there's a good description of the type of equipment that they're using, certainly those items can be issued out. A lot of times we have a loan agreement with the family, so we're asking them to recognize that the equipment belongs to us and they are borrowing it. So, with that understanding, we certainly have well-developed classrooms with a lot of supports and a lot of equipment that those things can be loaned out to families.
Excellent. I know there are some families that will be happy to hear that. And it sounds like, and some people asked about this, it sounds like it's going to be very important that parents reach out and make sure that IEPs are updated, and that they're aware of what's on the IEP, and that the school is aware of what's on the IEP, and there's just a lot of open communication this year.
That is correct. And their EC teacher or their case manager knows the content of the student's IEP as well. If they have equipment that's being supported by related services staff, such as OT, PT, or speech, they are also very well aware of the student's equipment needs.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
One question that came up a couple of times is that there are students in Pitt County schools who are part of the occupational course of study. So they might be able to go out to, say, Food Lion and do some work there. And we know that there are different circumstances outside in the community that aren't necessarily mirroring our schools. So parents are wondering how that might happen this year or what that looks like this year.
Yeah, I think Mary and I will tag team on this one. First of all, last year, if parents remember, they made some adjustments in the number of hours that our students needed to get their school hours that were on the occupational course of study. This year, for 2021, we're not sure if that will occur again, but what we've been able to do is purchase materials that if we go into remote learning, there are activities that the students can do to earn those hours. None of the students are going to be penalized for COVID. And a lot of the businesses, because they have gotten directives from our governor and DHH, have to have safety and protection protocols for everyone. So that would include our students that have to go out and do their job training hours with a business. So it's one of those issues, again, that we can say yes, but it's a relative yes, because there are other variables that we have to manage that oftentimes we don't have control over. Mary, would you like to add anything else to that response?
The resources that we bought and we purchased, we're going to have instructional resources where we'll be able to have some direct instruction on actually different job skills and different jobs. And with that came kits where we'll actually be able to provide hands-on resources for students. They'll be able to take home with them on that remote week and actually do hands-on activities, and we'll be able to count those as those school-based workouts. So we're really excited about this resource, and we worked really hard to kind of think out of the box to be able to provide them some opportunities to continue to grow in that area and fulfill that resource.
Yeah, I think out of the box is going to be a key phrase this year. And again, that mirrors that question about equipment being able to go to the home. And it sounds like you all have made some accommodations for thinking outside the box on how these students can still get these experiences, even if they're getting them right there from their homes, using equipment that belongs to the schools. So I think that's very helpful. Thank you.
And Colleen, before you transition to the next Q and A, what we want to let parents also know is this: what we're doing within the Exceptional Children's Division is a carryover. Because we provided a lot of these services when we were in the spring, and we learned a lot from it. I feel that we're very, very strong in our remote instruction and, of course, our direct instruction for face-to-face. But again, our service delivery plans often are layered because there are other variables out there that some other agency or some other entity has to be filtered in to help produce outcomes with students. So it makes it a little bit hard to just be firm on some of our responses just because of that.
Absolutely. There's so many pieces to this puzzle that involve our entire community and not just our schools. So thank you for adding that. There are some questions about testing. And so there's a little bit of question about if students receive accommodations for testing, things like extra time or testing in a certain space, will they only be testing during the weeks they're at school, or will there be a way to make these accommodations for them when they're at home?
I can kind of speak on the 504 portion for that, and I'm sure it'll be the same for students with an IEP. But accommodations will still be provided in the classroom and along with digital instruction. So whether it's testing accommodations or classroom accommodations, they'll be the same. I know the small group pullout was mentioned before, and because in the classroom, the class sizes will be reduced so much, they'll already be testing in a small group. So there may be some, yes, testing face-to-face, and then they may have some online assignments that they would get additional time on, or teachers might have to modify those assignments while they're working at home. There's also a lot out there right now, web add-ons, different programs that actually can give students accommodations, read aloud of text, chart overlays, changing color of fonts, things like dictionaries, auto highlighting, things to help with navigation of the computer. So there's a lot of accommodations that students can use. They may already be on their IEP, or it may be something similar on their 504 that they can use while they're digital learning at home, or if they're fully virtual. And then also those accommodations will still be provided in the classroom when they're doing testing.
Excellent. Thank you,
Hey,
Ms. White.
ladies, the fire alarm has gone off in our building and I have to leave.
Oh no.
I kid you not. I'll try to load on through my phone. I'm serious.
Okay, we can hear it. We believe you. All right. You know, just like on a regular day of school, anything can happen. So for those of you watching, just know that Miss Gaynor is going to try to log on her phone, but just like many times, she was prepared before it happened, and we have great staff here who can continue to answer questions if she's unable to rejoin us. That's how school folks work, right?
Absolutely. And the good news is that it's not raining outside right now for the fire drill.
Thank you, parents, for being understanding and flexible as you're watching this. So another question that came up similar to how things will be provided for students was around gifted students, so students in the AIG programs. And so will those students still be receiving AIG? You know, for instance, they are often pulled out of the classroom for their AIG class and sent with another group of students. And parents are wondering, is that still going to happen in this era where we're trying to keep clusters of students together and not have them move around a lot and things like that?
So we had gotten an email from Mr. DeCreasy, who does the AIG program. He's the director of digital learning. And this was his response to that question. AIG learners will have access to the district's AIG curriculum through Canvas. AIG teachers will be expected to provide the same learning opportunities that are available in a face-to-face environment. AIG teachers have also created digital enrichment materials for 3-5 grade math support. So it seems like, yes, those services will be still provided, but a lot of it will be through Canvas, through the instruction through Canvas.
Okay, so there may be some alterations of what AIG students receive, but with the same quality and the same thought put behind it to make sure that they're appropriately challenged. Now, one question that came up was that maybe towards the end of the year, a family might have started developing a 504 or an IEP with their child and the school and that entire team of folks. And then COVID happened and interrupted all of life. And so will they need to restart that process this year, or can it pick up where it was left off as they're establishing services?
I'll jump in.
Thank you.
As the best I understand the guidelines, this pretty much is an evaluation on hold. At least it is for the EC program. And so when we have completed an initial referral on a student and that parent has consented to the evaluation process, we've been asked to complete the components of the assessment that we are able to complete. So, you know, if the parent was able to complete rating scales or some other type of assessment where their input was asked for or the teacher's input was asked for, we're able to proceed with that type of evaluation. We're still, this kind of a parking lot question for us. We're still waiting on additional guidance from the Department of Public Instruction about our next steps for that. So I know that when we left the school year, all of those evaluation files, at least for me and my staff and other therapy staff, were really just kind of in a holding pattern until we could finish that. I would think, and you guys might jump in as well, that the 504 process would work the same, that the school would house that soft file on that student until that process is completed. I also have a few referrals of my own that are moving up to middle school, so I have it, you know, neatly packaged and ready to move on to the next therapist in the next school. So we do have internal processes that help, you know, us drive, you know, what needs to happen next for that student. So no, you would not be starting over with either of those processes.
I think that will be a great relief to parents, even if some of these answers are still being worked out. It's really good to hear that starting over is not in the plans. I think people will be very happy to hear that. Okay, so one question that has come up quite frequently in the questions that we've received from parents, it's also related to masks, but more specifically for students who are hearing impaired. There is some concern that if the teacher or the guidance counselor or any staff member they're interacting with is wearing a mask, that it might impair their ability to read lips or read facial expressions and things like that. So what accommodations are being put in place for students who are hearing impaired?
I can also speak on that. I was able to speak with our lead teacher this morning for deaf and hard of hearing students. We are working towards providing clear masks for those students and also the teachers who instruct those students. So our idea or concept is that both parties would wear a clear mask that would allow the other one to see not only their facial expressions, but how their lips are moving, because they also depend on that input for, you know, processing the information that they're hearing. So we know that we will be providing that type of equipment for students and staff to use. And there will probably also be some additional you know, accommodations or changes to the environment that might need to happen for those students.
Okay. I think, again, a common message there, and parents, you'll hear this from me all year long, is how important open communication between parents and school personnel will be this year. And open communication with your student to check in and see how they're doing with those accommodations and if any adjustments need to be made. Don't feel any hesitancy to reach out to the schools this year and just talk about how these things are working out for your students. I think that's going to be a key piece of getting through the year. This may not be a question that you all know the answer to. It might have been a Miss Gaynor question, but it is a common one, so I'm going to put it out there. We know when we talked with Dr. Lassiter last week, he informed us that if a family chooses virtual learning, they're really committing to a semester of virtual learning before changing their mind. Families are wondering if a child identifies as an exceptional, with the Exceptional Children's Program, and they do change their mind after a couple weeks. They find out that virtual learning just isn't working for their child. Can they contact the school and on a case-by-case basis be considered a bit differently than the semester commitment?
That may be a parking lot question as well.
I kind of thought so,
Right.
but I want to put it out there. And I guess, again, I'll just reiterate how important it is to have open communication. And parents, I guess I'll say to you, you won't hear the word no if you don't ask. So, you know, the answer might be no, but it's always worth calling your school and talking to your specific school about your specific situation and finding out if anything can happen there. All my questions went away. Okay, here they are.
We can certainly work to get that question back to Ms. Gaynor so that hopefully there's some resolution there.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And if you all find out a specific answer to that question and want to let me know, we can always post it on the Parents for Public Schools social media and send that out to parents as well. Let's see. For students who are considered ELL, what supports are going to be provided for them and their families?
So this was also a question we reached out to Ms. Ford, who's the federal program coordinator, and she said that ELL students will receive both live and digital instruction. So it sounds like lesson delivery will occur in a 2-block week through Seesaw and Canvas, and then they'll also ESL teachers will also work closely with classroom teachers to provide guidance in modifying grade level content so that instruction is accessible to them.
I think I remember reading that we do have someone with the schools who can do translation and could send instructions and materials home to parents so that parents can understand what's going on with their students in their native language.
Yeah, and there was a link that was sent, Kylene, if you want to post that, where all the COVID announcements were in Spanish as well.
All right, thank you. Okay. Ladies, I am looking back through my questions to see if I missed anything, but I think that you all have covered a lot today. One last question that I don't think I addressed. So if a student needs to revisit their goals after choosing online instruction, so say they've chosen online instruction, but one of their goals is related to social goals, is that something that can be revisited and tweaked based on the type of instruction that they're getting now?
Absolutely. That will be some of the things that we will be working through when school starts, and we'll be reviewing plans. And that's a perfect example of when they have that behavioral or social goal that might look a little different under these circumstances. So we may be looking at it, and it may be that we want to tweak the goal that's more applicable to what we're currently facing at this time. So as always, parents can certainly request a meeting, and the school will be looking at those things also and being proactive and reaching out and communicating, like you said, to address those.
Excellent. So again, that open communication, making sure that you're talking through how goals are going, and tweaking plans as they need to be tweaked. I think the message we've gotten today is that everyone is here with the goal of working with families and finding out what works best for them and the schools, and everyone just working together and really seeing this from a team effort. So anything that any of you would like to add to parents who are out there listening today?
I did just want to say something about the teletherapy, because I know that it's going to look a little bit different than it did when we, excuse me, had the school closing. One thing is that in order to get the teletherapy, we are going to need them to sign a consent form. Now, many parents signed a consent form back in March, but that was very specific to when school was closed. So now that we are reopening, we will need a new consent sign. So they just need to kind of be looking for that. We may be doing some of the teletherapy even if they are choosing in person and going into the buildings, just because of the safety measures. We're used to, for speech, we're used to pulling a group of students into our classroom where our rooms are not as large as a regular classroom. So in order to still do some group therapy, which is really good for some of those social goals, we may have to be creative and do teletherapy with the student in the back of their classroom so that we're pulling kids and doing some of it that way. So there will be a consent form that parents will sign for that. The other thing is, I know last year we had some parents that were concerned about our platform using Zoom because of all the things that went out about Zoom. And I just wanted to reassure parents that we have a different level of Zoom. It is a HIPAA compliant Zoom platform. And so that helps maintain the confidentiality there. So I did just want to share that information as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that as parents, we're always thankful for any extra information that we can get. So I really appreciate you putting that out there. Anybody else have a final closing statement that you'd like to share with parents, or another piece of information you feel like they should hear today?
I do. If they would check out the EC department website on Pitt County Schools, that certainly is your resource to all the resources and materials that we have within our department. And then also check out school nutrition, the Department of School Nutrition. If you have a student that has any unique mealtime needs regarding food allergies or specialized diets or any type of updates needed in that department, we would encourage you to download those forms and complete those with your medical provider as well. It will be very important to have as good as possible up-to-date information on your students' medical needs.
you so much. That's really helpful as well. Anyone else have information you feel like you want to close with? All right. Well, thank you, ladies, very much for joining me. We're going to hope that all is well in the building where Miss Gaynor was. And we're so thankful that each of you were willing to be on this call. Parents, again, I just urge you to be patient, to know that some of these questions are still being worked out and will continue to be worked out throughout the year once we see them in play. Some of these things, we're just going to have to see them happen to be able to work them out. So thank you so much, parents, for your patience. Thank you, school personnel, for all of the hard work that you're doing. And we all look forward to a great, although unique, school year. Have a great one.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
I'm going to let all of you sign off.